There's no shortage of superficial analysis of the U.S. election results by many of the same people who were blinded by their own political leanings that they got it all wrong. And sadly, I see little evidence to suggest that the majority will use that slap in the face to get back on track. Instead, the election results are just an excuse to jump on their favorite hobby horses again to justify why they got it wrong. As I've stated on more than one occasion, my biggest complaint was how tens of millions of Americans were overlooked in the prevailing political analysis. I see no meaningful distinction, by the way, in this regard between the Republican and Democratic Party establishments when it comes to ignoring serious problems. I'll just give you one example. 2.3 million Americans are behind bars. Did you hear that? 2.3 million Americans are behind bars. Nearly 40% are black. Same percentage, by the way, of the number of white who are incarcerated. But despite the fact that there are 5 times more white people in America than black people. It's incredible. Something's very wrong, but predictably, this didn't even merit a minute during the election. Of course, that's not the only area that the system's failed. Arguably, the most common narrative of the election was that Trump voters were ignorant and uneducated. Well, there's a question there. Who the hell is in charge of public education? And the answer is government. Here's the inconvenient truth, and it's representative of the failure of government to address important issues from the role technology plays on job losses to the 95 million Americans who are permanently unemployed and are ignored in the unemployment statistics. But one can make a very good case that nowhere is that failure of the political establishment of both parties at all 3 levels of government more pronounced with bigger social implications than with inner-city public school disasters, which in turn has a major impact on an individual's ability to get a job. Now, I invite you to note that you don't see any protests about that. No hand-wringing on the university campuses, complaining about it on political panels. These students are also forgotten. Consider that there's not a single elected official in Washington who would disagree with the statement that inner-city schools are a disaster. Well-known Democrat Davis Guggenheim, that's the guy who did Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. In other words, his left-leaning credentials are without question. Well, he chronicled the educational mess in his acclaimed documentary, Waiting for Superman. The entire political establishment, including the media, knows about the disaster in the inner-city public education. But how have the Democrats and Republican elites responded? Straightforward. Every single one sends their children to private school. But it's worse than that. Every effort to change the system to the benefit of the students is opposed by the teachers' union and their political allies. We had a great example at the beginning of the school year this year. California Supreme Court decided not to hear an appeal of a case charging that the state had systematically denied minority students trapped in failing schools their constitutional right to an education. The student plaintiffs had actually won that case in the lower court, but they lost on appeal. And now, by not allowing an appeal to that decision, the California Supreme Court has doomed tens of thousands of students to lives of diminished possibility, if not poverty. Essentially, the case was about the state and teachers union protecting the worst teachers, undermining the students' right to an education. The student plaintiffs were complaining about a system that guaranteed jobs for life for 98% of the teachers in the Los Angeles Unified School District. After less than 2 years, 98% get teaching certificates for life. And here's a number for you. In over 10 years, only 19 teachers in the entire state were dismissed for subpar performance. The students said enough, but the establishment didn't. And by the way, California students rank near the bottom in reading and math in the U.S. In this case, the students from underprivileged areas were opposed by the Democratic Party establishment along with the teachers union. One more quick example. In New York, Democratic Mayor Bill de Blasio, along with the teachers union, is fighting other Democrats over charter schools despite their superior results. As the Wall Street Journal reported, Harlem's highest performing middle school is a charter school, 95% minority, and is ranked number 1 in the state for math achievement for 5th grade students, while 22 schools in the charter network have double the success rate of the citywide average. In the largest chain of charter schools, 95% are African American or Latino, with the vast majority low income, yet an incredible 83% go on to college. And this is the system they want to fight? But my point is that no one in the political establishment would disagree with what I'm saying here. That the key to a gainful employment and realizing an individual's potential is a good education, yet they continue to not only fail students in inner cities, but they actively work to undermine them. So I see little chance for individuals to be able to adapt to meet the challenge of a changing job market without a good educational background. Yet for purely political reasons, these students are being ghettoized, and no one seems to care. These are part of that politically dispossessed that just played a role in the U.S.